Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and this is Ask a Herbert Erpaderp, your favourite video series about asking questions of Herbert Erpaderps the world over. Well, maybe not the world over, I don't occupy the entire planet, but you get what I mean. I'll be answering your questions and sharing cool pictures of models from the community. But before that, I'd like to quickly mention that I fixed the Patreon reward that allows patrons access to a private patron-only Discord channel. If you are a patron and you didn't realise this was working now, you shouldn't find it too hard to access. If you're not interested in Discord, that's fine. But I do plan to use that channel to post quick little behind-the-scenes things. Photos and comments and things like that. Of course, I will still be doing that on Patreon itself, but some less important and I guess quicker things will go on the patrons-only Discord channel, mostly because that's easy. Also, it's a good place for patrons to ask questions with less likelihood that I'll miss them. If you're not already a patron and this sounds like something you would be interested in, it's pretty easy to become a patron. Simply follow the Patreon link in the description and for as little as $1 a month you can save a Herbert Erpaderp from starvation, or something. You also get to see videos early, take part in polls, and other bonus things as well. Now the self-promotion thing is done, let's get to the questions. Duncanuva said, have you heard of a site called Shapeways? It's a site where you can buy 3D printed stuff. I found a model of a Bob Semple in 15mm. I have heard of Shapeways and it seems like a pretty useful site if you need 3D printed objects. Though looking through some of the models, they can be a bit expensive. I was there looking for buses the other week, though I couldn't find anything suitable and what they had was pretty expensive. Though I guess because I wanted something significantly bigger than 15mm scale, I guess it makes sense that it would cost more. So yes, to answer the question, I have heard of Shapeways. Mosh said, what's a good way to start with an airbrush? Like maybe 150 Australian dollars is the upper end of my budget, but it's flexible. That's a good question. I think you can find fairly cheap airbrushes easily enough. I have no expert suggestions or anything like that, mostly because I'm not an expert, but if you can find something cheaper from known companies like Iwata and Badger, you'd probably do pretty well. Just try to avoid the extremely cheap airbrushes you find on eBay and such. My first airbrush was from Runway 13 and I still use that today. What I would suggest you look for is a double action airbrush. Personally, I prefer gravity feed because it works well with small amounts of paint, and a 0.3 needle should be adequate for what you want. You might be able to save some money by going for a non-hobby specific air compressor, but that will depend on your tolerance for noise. The air compressors you can get from hardware stores might be cheap, but they're also quite noisy. And you might have to find some adapters so that you can actually connect the airbrush to the compressor. Hobby airbrushes use smaller hoses and smaller connectors. I don't generally keep an eye on what's out there in products that I'm not actively looking to buy, if that makes sense, so my advice is a little bit basic. But you should be able to find something fairly decent for $150 or so if you shop around. On the topic of airbrushes, Top Bunk Productions had a suggestion for a quick tips video topic. Or I assume that's what this is for. He says, how do you easily disassemble and maintain an airbrush, and how often should it be done? It's the idea of frequent and complex maintenance that's put me off using my airbrush for years. It's a good idea and one I could probably do pretty easily, so that's on the list. But I just wanted to say, if the thought of excessive maintenance is putting you off getting an airbrush, I can tell you that it's not really an issue. If you keep it fairly clean as you use it, and if you don't let it get all blocked up with dried paint and things like that, it shouldn't need to be fully cleaned too frequently. Not to the point where you need to totally disassemble the airbrush anyway. I mostly just rinse it out and give it a quick cleaning after each colour, and then a more thorough cleaning once I've finished the painting session. Maintenance is fairly simple, as is assembly and disassembly, though that will obviously vary between airbrushes. I will make a video about it sometime, maybe after the next time I do some airbrushing, so that I'm not just dirtying my airbrush for nothing. Jondhell, that's my Roblox name, said, will you kit out your T-Rex with Dino D-Day kit, flags, guns and everything? I will admit it is pretty tempting to do that, and maybe I will eventually do it. It's definitely not a priority though. I would have to find appropriate guns that I think look cool and figure out some mountings and things like that. Maybe one day, but not soon. Jondhell also said, what is the derpiest thing you've ever built? No KV2s cause it's low-hanging fruit. I guess the KV2 is the good kind of derpy. I suppose maybe the Resin Warlord Hetzer is derpy too, in a bad way. Other than that and the T-Rex, I can't really think of anything especially derpy that I've built, so I guess those two are the answer. Sneaky Zaku said, what are the colours of the Derptopian army? There's a model in the pictures section of this fortnight's Ask a Herbert Erpaderp where Top Bunk Productions shared his idea of the Derptopian Legion KV2. It's got some nice pink and purple colours, so I would say that, plus a nice deep red as another option. Those are colours that I like quite a lot, so why not make those the official Derptopian Legion colours? Max W said, would you consider purchasing and building Model Collect's 1/72nd scale P1000 Rat? I sure have considered it, and I will almost certainly get it at some point. Not right away though, I need to work through some of the kits that I already have. I would also like to get one of the very sensible looking rocket launching E100s. It's certainly on my radar. FatSlav6969, lol, funny sex number, said, why don't you paint your figures on the sprue before gluing them? And same with priming your tanks. Because then it would take months for me to get anything built, and I like making a video each week. Adding painting to that makes it impossible to do on a weekly basis. Also, it doesn't seem entirely practical to me and introduces more steps and work to do. Painting parts before assembling them means that I then have to do extra cleanup when I glue them together, and if I'm messy with the glue I have to clean that up. I'd also have to clean up the sprue gates and then touch up the paint there, and if I have to do any filling then I have to prime over that and then touch up the paint again. Also, I would have less idea of how things are going to look when they're put together. I guess that might not be an issue if you strictly paint with certain colours or something, but I really like to take the time and look at the model as a whole and then make adjustments based on that, if that makes sense. Painting things separately does make sense sometimes, like sub-assemblies, especially if they're going to be different colours than the rest of the model, but individual parts on the sprue just doesn't work for me. It adds too much extra work. Not to mention that I could see the paint being easily damaged while I tried to assemble the model, which sounds frustrating. Anything that makes builds and videos take even more time and work to do is something that I really want to avoid. Top Bunk Productions said, would you ever consider doing more episodes of World of Tanks Advice? The previous ones are very entertaining and surely wouldn't be too difficult to edit due to their short length. Yeah, I do consider that every now and then, and they were pretty quick and simple to edit. The main thing really would be capturing appropriate video clips. Maybe I could do something about the BT-7 being for jumps and not combat or something like that. That could be fun. Australian Train Nut said, what is your favourite New South Wales steam loco? That's a bit specific. Off the top of my head, the only one I can really think of is the, I believe, 38 class, the one with the streamlining and green paint. I always thought that was a cool engine, and I still do. Some dude said, what is your favourite planet/moon? I don't really know. It's not really something I've thought about. Do they have to be real planets? I guess I can't even really think of a Star Trek planet I would consider a favourite. I do find Mars and the exploration and discoveries there kind of interesting, but I wouldn't want to live there. I guess Earth is a pretty decent planet. Shame about most of its inhabitants though. Ratto said, do you have a pet rock? If no, what kind of rock would you like as a pet? I don't. I'd like a nice big rock of some kind of valuable material. Maybe painite, because it's valuable, and it's called painite, discovered by somebody with the last name Payne, which is pretty cool. I kind of hope they were a supervillain. Or I guess I might settle for platinum or gold or something like that. RGames12 said, did you ever do blacksmithing? I've never done blacksmithing. I have done some basic metalwork as a job before, and not particularly enjoyed it. I guess hobby blacksmithing would be a little bit less demanding than an actual job, and it might be interesting to try at some point. I could make myself a thing. I don't know what you make as a beginner blacksmith, but I don't like the heat, so I don't think I would enjoy hanging around in a forge very much. I do, however, enjoy watching Alex Steele's videos. If you don't know of him, he does blacksmithing and makes a bunch of cool stuff, and he does so in a charismatic and entertaining way. So if that's interesting to you, I would suggest checking him out. On last fortnight's Ask a Herbert Erpaderp, Adam Cool said, I've seen you have a few pets in some of your vids. Do you keep any aquatic ones? I currently have 7 fish tanks housing way too many fish. P.S. I feel you about the War Thunder fanboys. I love the game, but not all the chaps that play it. I do. I used to have an excellent fighting fish named General Martok, but he died a couple of weeks ago. Rip Martok. He was a very good angry boy. I have got some new fish though, that you've been watching this entire video. Probably obviously to most people, these are guppies. Fancy guppies. They're fancy because of the cool tail patterns and how colourful they are. There's also 2 Borneo suckers, also known as hillstream loaches or Chinese devil suckers, which I think is pretty funny. I'm hoping they'll help to keep the glass and rocks and stuff clean. None of them have names yet, I only got them yesterday as of the time of recording, but I think they're pretty rad. Also, I'm totally for people enjoying games, even if they prefer one very similar game over the other. Obsessive fanboys, on the other hand, certainly make things much less pleasant, at least if you pay attention to them. RedGreen09 said, "What's favourite tank in World of Tanks?" I don't really know, I find it quite hard to pick favourites, but I do really enjoy the BT-7 because it's so fun to do jumps in. The KV-2 can also be rather fun, if Stalin approves of you and is willing to guide your shells onto target. I also really like both the Cromwell and Comet. They've got a good combination of shootiness and, more importantly, ability to do jumps. RH said, "As somebody who is completely dedicated to War Thunder as their mainstay World War II themed aircraft/tank game, I have to say, if you enjoy World of Tanks, keep on enjoying World of Tanks and producing World of Tanks content. I'll watch it." That's the kind of attitude I wish more people had. I mean, not just the willingness to watch stuff that I make, but also being chill and not being a dick about other people's gaming choices. I guess it's probably not really that uncommon an attitude. Most people don't really care if you enjoy other games as long as they can play their games. It just seems a bit uncommon because those obsessive fanboys with no self-awareness and nothing else going on in their lives are the loudest. It's nice to be reminded that not all gamers are like that. Rodel Gandon said, "I recommend a good kit from Airfix, the 1/72nd scale Ju-87 Stuka B2/R2. I do like Stukas, so I am kind of tempted to check it out. Maybe. I'm still really unconvinced with Airfix. I guess if it's a newer tooling it might not be so bad, but still I don't really want to specifically order it online or anything like that. But if I happen to see it in a hobby shop I might be inclined to impulse buy it. I do actually have another Stuka in my stash that I'm kind of keen to build. I've forgotten who makes it, but it has an IS-2 included, so you could build it as a diorama. I thought that seemed pretty cool, so I had to buy it. Had to. And I will eventually get around to building it." Tom Kelly said, "Why the Vault-Tec shirt?" Because I like Fallout? Why do you think people wear shirts with things on them? I can't tell if you're trying to be funny or if you're actually upset or something. Okay, that's it for the questions. Let's move on to the miniatures portion of the video. If you want to share some of your own modelling work, be sure to head on over to my Discord server and post in the miniatures channel. It's a good community, you'll have fun. Or else. I have omitted a handful of things, so if you want to see everything and take part in the discussions, you'll need to be in the channel. First, Jihad Teppo has shared his chieftain crew, who are now all painted up. And here you can see them in their tank, which is unsurprisingly a chieftain, being that this is a chieftain crew. The commander really does have a great Freddie Mercury mustache. Very nice work. He also shared this Revell 1/72nd scale Panavia, if I'm saying that right, Tornado used by the RAF. This looks really cool. You say the canopy is a bit ruined, but I think that's slightly too strong a word. It doesn't look too bad, and canopies do seem to be pretty tricky. Also, here's an SDKFZ 251. At this point the shading and highlights have been completed. Looking good so far. Let's see how it progresses. Here some weathering has been done using brown panel liner and dust. And here is the finished product. This looks really good, and it looks like the model has working doors and everything. Most excellent. Weasel finished their 2-seat Spitfire Mark 9, which you may remember from the previous Ask a Herbert Erpaderp, where it was shown with no paint. This is really cool. For those who don't remember, this model was converted from an Airfix Spitfire Mark 1. And here is Weasel's completed 1/35th scale RPM T3 tankette, compared with a KV-1 and a 15mm scale mouse. Weasel said the fit was great and made a fun build and an opportunity for a scratch-built interior with magnetic engine hatch, with an engine from a T20 artillery tractor underneath. Crimson 1149 has just got some Italians for mid-war, and has just started painting some M14 41s. Must resist the urge to get some Italian stuff myself. And here's some images from Ratto. First, painting at the gaming club. Then he says, if you want to torture yourself, try assembling Infinity Bakunin Uberfall commandos. Surprisingly, I don't like self-torture. Here are some painted fellows. From left to right, Zero with combi rifle, which makes me think it's a rifle that shoots out combi buses. Something is wrong with my brain. Then Hellcat with HMG and Mobile Brigada with HMG. And here are some repeater markers that Ratto made. These are neat, simple but effective. Does anybody else have any cool markers or similar things that they've made themselves? Do share. Here is Ryuken Unit 9, which is a Japanese special unit in Infinity. I like that one has an R and the other has a 9 on the shoulder pads. These Kisotsu Butai, or Excellent Soldiers, are basic Japanese riflemen. Apparently of all the basic riflemen, these are the least excellent, but they're also the cheapest. And here's all the painted Japanese from the new army pack. Ratto still has 3 more models to go. Top Bunk Productions shared this teeny tiny 20mm TKS. It's a 1/72nd scale model seen here next to Plastic Soldier Company's Panzer IV in the same scale. And here we see it riding on top of a Pegasus 1/72nd scale mouse, who probably has no idea that it's up there. What a great image. Top Bunk also completed this Greek Hellenic Centaur from the Greek Civil War. It's the 1/76 scale Airfix Cromwell, with a 50 cal from a trumpeter Sherman. The tank's name is Hydra, written in Greek, which I can't read. I can tell that it's a really nice looking model though. Top Bunk has also completed his first of a platoon of 15mm scale Plastic Soldier Company Stu-42 assault guns. This looks really nice. The gun and Sauerkopf mantlet had to be cut up and extensively modified, as the kit doesn't have the Sauerkopf mantlet as an official option for the 105mm gun. And here's Top Bunk's Derptopian Legion KV-2, which I mentioned before. I really like this, not only because it's a KV-2, but it's a Derptopian Legion KV-2, which I guess is something I started when I was playing Cities Skylines. I should play that again. These can be the official colours, purple and pink, and also a dark red for variety. I think the best part of this is that it says "haha but" on the rear. Excellent. And more from Top Bunk, the second in his assault gun platoon. This one is clearly very different to the first one. It's also quite awesome. Very nice weathering. And here's the fully completed set of blown up Daleks, which is also very cool. The big boy tested his new phone camera on this Gundam Exia. I think it's fair to say, test passed. And here's a 6-pounder. This model is an Airfix 1/76 scale kit that the big boy just finished painting. Very shooty. And here it is in diorama form. The big boy has named this Take Aim, because the chap on the right looks to be indicating the target to shoot at. It's simple but effective. Sneaky Zaku shared this midget Gundam fellow. I don't know anything about this little guy, but he's pretty entertaining to look at. Also, here's a big gun. Good for shooting at big things, I guess. And this here Zaku. Is it a sneaky one? Wait. John Hell, that's my Roblox name, shared some German vehicles about to have their way with a Sherman. Poor little fella. And here's his King Tiger from the Battle of the Bulge. I'm not really sure what brand this model is, but it's nicely done. Harry is Loving Rusty Spoons shared this, well, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it looks really cool. He's a big green clobbering machine. Tuplov has been working on a kill team for their own Space Marine chapter called the White Bears, who have polar bear pelts on their armour. That's some nice green stuff work you've done there. I look forward to seeing them painted. Flying Scanion finished this 1/72nd scale Leopard 2 A4, saying it's a bit of a dog kit, but at least the only costs were for glue, green stuff and paint, which is nice, and I think the result is pretty good. James Valentine shared some progress on this very nice Sherman. Here the base colours have been applied, and then highlighting and shades have been started, followed by decals. Anyone who's a regular around here isn't going to be surprised how well this turns out. And you don't even have to wait, because here's the completed model, sans base. I really like this. I think it's a more interesting paint scheme than you normally see on a Sherman. And these pictures are obviously the tank with the base. Awesome work as usual, James. Be sure to keep it up. Dunkanuva showed us a custom paint job for his Zaku and Heavy Weapons Gundam quad chain guns. And here's a Matchbox E8 Prowler that he's been fixing. And this speedy looking car. Dunkanuva asked if anyone has any paint job ideas for it. I suggest hot pink. Here's HMS Iron Duke, primed and ready for a very realistic and sensible purple camo scheme. This mouse is primed too, and will be receiving an RNZAN livery. I will admit to not knowing what RNZAN stands for. This Jagd Tiger will be painted the same way, as will this Panzer 4D. Some dude shared his foil-wrapped plane. It looks like it's come along quite nicely. It seems it just needs a few more parts and some paint touch-ups now. Lizalica1 shared this little Super Pershing. Nicely painted. It looks ready to go out and purge. That's what Pershings do. Outlook Cov shared some 1/2400th scale ships. There's a Space Marine for scale so you can see just how tiny these ships are. Amazing. These seem to be really well detailed for their size too. Very cool. Kind of tempted to get some for myself now. Pax Britannica shared this giant Stompy Boy. It's a walker that Pax designed themselves for Conflict 47. This model was 3D printed on a fancy pants printer that Pax Britannica has access to. And here's the first one in its original British scheme. Awesome stuff. Also, here's a nice bagpiper Pax shared along with the quote, "Nothing does psychological warfare better than hundreds of angry Scotsmen running at you with bagpipes blaring." Quote from Bill Millen in 1944. And finally, DDG-70 USS Hopper shared this beastie. The name of this plane escapes me at the moment, but it looks pretty cool. It seems there was some frustration with tearing decals, and I think we've all been there, but nice work anyway. And that's it for this fortnight. Thanks to everyone for their questions, and a big thank you to everyone who shared their models. It's inspiring as always. If you have a question you would like answered in the next Ask a Herbert Erpaderp, be sure to leave it in the comment section below or on Discord. And if you haven't already, why not sub here on YouTube, follow me on social media, or watch me stream on Twitch. And if you really like what I do, please consider supporting over on Patreon, or perhaps purchasing a shirt or mug from my merch store. You could even use my referral link to buy stuff from the Humble Bundle store. Links to all of those things are in the description below. And as always, I shall return soon. So until then, be excellent to each other and thanks for watching. Farewell.